Hey bee folks, Ryan Williamson here with Sourwood Farm. I want to talk about introducing virgin queens to colonies. I've been shipping out virgins a lot to folks all over the nation, and the question, how do we introduce these queens, comes up quite a bit. And there's no doubt virgins are a little bit more challenging. But there's some, kind of tried and true methods, and then a lot of experimentational methods, or I guess other people call them tried and true, but I've been experimenting with them. So the basic concept that typically we shoot for is we make a split. So it might be like a 5-frame split off of a colony or smaller. And small little colonies get better acceptance with new queens typically. The other thing we do is we move that split quite often to another spot in the same bee yard. So I got a lot of colonies here, so I might make a split, let's say off this colony here that's a brood factory, and then move it over here. So what happens is pretty quickly the field bees in the new split, they go back home. And that works really well because the older bees that have more allegiance to the original queen, they're gone. Now we have this little split that has no queen. And quite often if we're using, let's say, a mated queen or queen cells, we can go ahead typically immediately or the same day later in the day. Maybe the next day is, some people wait a day. I like doing it, split in the morning, introduce a mated queen or a queen cell more a couple hours later towards the evening. And then that gives time for field bees to go home and the bees that are left to go, whoa, we have no queen. We want one. And they start to fan and they're a little more desperate and they're very happy to get a replacement queen. Virgin queens, a little more iffy. They have some pheromones. It really depends on the age. I've had virgin queens that were just emerging, literally holding the queen in one hand, with my other hand make a split, drop the freshly emerged virgin queen in. Her pheromones are so small, the new split, with no time at all to think they're queenless, they accepted her. It was just kind of mind-blowing. As the queen ages, especially as she gets older than maybe 3-4 days, her pheromones build a lot more, and then that's where a lot of the acceptance issues come. So quite often I can make a split in the morning, and then in that evening introduce a freshly emerged virgin queen, and that works out pretty cool. But that's hard on my end, or anytime we're selling virgin queens. Shipping takes some time. Typically, if I have a queen emerging on a Sunday, I want to ship her on a Monday, and then the customer maybe is going to get her midday Tuesday, and so the earliest is Tuesday afternoon. So she's got a little age, but typically that works out. You can kind of get away with a pretty quick introduction. But it not always works out. So, occasionally the colony's like, whoa, we don't like her. So there's different ways of introducing that young virgin to a colony. You can have her caged. I've been experimenting with some other methods of dousing her with sugar syrup and the colony of sugar syrup and introducing. That's a little more iffy, but had some good luck. Or powdered sugar can work too. Some people just use smoke. But keeping her in a cage seems to work the best. So this is a homemade, a well-used cage. It's been used many, many times. I know this one's got partial candy because I want this introduction to go a little faster. But anyway, what we want to do is wait out the ability for the bees to make emergency queen cells. So that's the other big challenge. If the bees can make emergency queen cells, they often want to take their own versus what we're giving them, even if it's looks great to us. they really want to raise their own queen. So if we make a split and we have an older virgin or just want to be super safe, we need to let the brood age out. And so that means letting all the eggs that are on that comb from the split we make get old enough that there's no way the bees can make an emergency queen cell. That's like 8-9 days. That's what I did here in this split here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this phone on here. I've got a little holder around my neck, and we're going to open this up and see what we see. So this is a split I made, I think it was 10 days ago. And I had a queen I really wanted to introduce them. So she's right here. And to make sure they couldn't get her out too fast, I put duct tape over the candy. And we'll just make sure she's alive. And I think I see her in there. Yep, there she is. Now we're going to go through, I'm going to set her aside, and we're going to go through the nuke, which is just really 3 frames realistically. We got some, it's a 5-frame box, but that's just foundation. Let's give a little space. I should probably put my veil on, but I'm not. Now what I'm going to do here is be a little, I don't know, not super gentle, but I'm going to shake the bees off, and we're going to look for emergency queen cells. And see, here's all the queen cells they've made. We have no open brood, so there's no way they can raise a queen on this frame. A little uncapping going on, that's kind of cool. And over here, same deal. Got some emergency queen cells. The reason I shook the frame is these emergency queen cells can be really good at hiding. You get a clump of bees over a cell, you miss it. All you have to do is miss one emergency queen cell, and this whole operation of introducing a virgin queen isn't going to work out. So we're just going to pinch those off. And there we go. No brood there. And that looks pretty good too. So we're going to put it all back together. And then in this situation, because they've been queenless so long, there's no way they can make a queen. I'm going to kind of pull some of the candy out. Oof, my smoker's going too good. Smoking me out. Ugh, eyes burning. I like smoke for keeping the bees calm, but that's a little much. So I'm going to just use a stick here. Typically, I would advise to not do that, but I just made a little bit more of a hole. But these have been queenless quite a long time, so I know that they're going to accept this marked queen. One aspect I really like with virgin queens is I can mark them ahead of time. So when I come back into a colony and I find an unmarked queen, I know that it's not the one I gave them, and I can mark the colony. Likewise, I like to have my notes on the outside of the box telling me what's going on, and now a vertical brick to tell me what's going on. Right, it's been 12 days since we put the virgins in, or released the virgin in this case, put the virgins in the other one, and it's time to check back and see if we had successful mating. At this point, even the late bloomers should be laying eggs, and if we have nothing, then it's time to add brood and another queen. So let's see about this one. This one had an older virgin, and if I recall correctly, she had been caged during the time that the bees were queenless. There's the cage. You can see how the candy's been eaten away. It's towards dusk, so bees are going to be a little bit more antsy. But I'm a lot happier because it's been hot. We've been hitting close to 100 every day, and it's a lot nicer out now. So let's see what we got here. So this is the frames of foundation. I'm just trying to go slow. Well, they drew out a little bit of comb, so that's a good sign. Oh yeah, I should have the smoker going, huh? See a little bit of white wax there, so that's good. I was feeding them after I uncapped the candy. But generally, if there is no mated queen, they're a lot less likely to draw wax. And I see a little bit of larva. So I think we have a queen. This side. Yep, so we're good. This queen was successful. I don't want to go any more to disturb a young queen. It's hot out. Yeah, the bees are doing their air conditioning. And I want to talk to you about virgins. Yeah, let's recap the things that work well and don't work well with introducing virgins. So first off, we know that a large colony with old bees and the ability to make emergency queen cells is very, very likely to reject a virgin queen and make their own. So why take on this new unknown queen when they can make up their own daughter? And so that's what they often do. In fact, I've been experimenting this spring with just making up nymphs and plopping queen cages in, and I've got friends that said it's worked really well, but my experience was anywhere between don't know, maybe a quarter working to, you know, maybe 50% on average. It was not great. So yeah, that for myself, that didn't work well. And I was using fairly young virgins doing that. So it wasn't the age of the virgin, but you know, just making up a split, immediately putting the virgin with candy. This was out yards where it's hard for me to go back. So things that do work well with introducing virgins. We want a small colony. So 5-frame nuke works really nicely. With young bees, we're going to move that nuke into a new spot in the same bee yard so the field bees go home. It does mean we have to add more bees in to accommodate those the returning bees to the original home, but it means we have younger bees that are much happier to take on a new queen in their to their colony. And we want the bees to have no ability to make an emergency queen cell, and that means either only cap brood when we make the split, which is super duper hard, or wait out the brood. So we make the split and wait 8 days. The virgin queen could be in there or maybe not in there during that period. But either way, we're going to wait out the time, the brood, let it age out, then tear down any emergency queen cells, and at that point do a candy release for the queen. It's super tempting to do a direct release. I've done it lots, and while it works a lot of the time, I'm embarrassed to say how many times I've watched a virgin get mauled by the bees, and they've been, you know, everything seemed right, but nope, they didn't want her, and they, you know, it just takes one bee to sting a leg or bite away at her, and things go south, and that's a real bummer. So if we do a candy release, it gives more time for the bees to get to know that queen, less likelihood that they're going to maul her. Also, they're not disturbed when she gets out. A beekeeper doesn't have the lid open. Using smoke definitely is a useful thing that helps calm them down, and then feed. Having the, you know, a bit of syrup on there, you know, they're just a little bit fat. Fat and happy bees are just happier to accept a new leader than hungry, cranky ones, it turns out. During the flow, that kind of is taken care of by nature. We're at the tail end of the flow here, so I've got jars on a lot of colonies. Some of these I'm just trying to get them to finish drawing comb. Some of these have young queens in them, but it just makes a huge difference to have a little bit of feed on them. So, but I do, going back to the brood, cap brood in the colony really does help, because if you have no brood at all, it's very quick and easy for the bees to head towards laying workers, and laying workers think they have a queen, and so what do you know, they kill that virgin too. So we want to, you know, and these rules, they really, not rules, but these guidelines or basic strategies, they apply to the other forms of requeening, i.e. using a mated queen and queen cells as well. Just not quite as, I don't know how to say it. You can get away with a lot more with a mated queen and queen cells than with virgins. You know, that said, there's some techniques with introducing virgins where you can also speed the process up quite a bit. And if I'm going to do all that work to you know, get the queen accepted, I also want her to return from her mating flight. And that's why my bee yard is total chaos. It's like a zoo here. I've got boxes all different shapes, colors, aiming all different directions. And the goal here is that I really want the bees to not get confused between boxes. We might like a nice straight line of white boxes. It looks good in a picture, but the bees get confused. So if I have the, you know, different sizes, colors, bottom boards are different colors too. I alternate directions, bushes, you know, just anything to help. And I, here at this home yard where I have sometimes up to 300 colonies, I think now, I don't know, I'm going to guess at about 150. I can't really count very easily because it's such a zoo. I'll try counting them off by 10 each time, it seems. But anyway, this year I had in the neighborhood of 85% to 90% success rate with virgins or making back from their mating flight. So yeah, I'm okay with that. That's just as good as I get out yards where I have just a few hives. Yeah, and then what I'm going to do is also try to not disturb the bees. Patience is so hard as a beekeeper. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a hive. In fact, I've done it recently, and I'm almost 100% certain the failure was because of my intervention messing with them. I had a nuke over here where I went in just to see if my test method of introducing these virgins worked, and it did. I found, you know, after a few days, I had the 2 marked virgins that I put in there, and this one was queenless for just a few days. And then I did a syrup, just drenched them with syrup and introduced the virgins, young virgins straight away. And they took, but I come back later after they should be mated and there's no queens. Was it me going in there to check twice? Probably. I normally get much better mating success than that, so I'm guessing that I messed that up. But you know, that's my curiosity getting in the way of the bees, and so yeah, the best thing we can do is wait at least a week, 2 weeks, and then that first inspection is going to be really slow. Or I should say, it's going to be quick, but we're going to move slowly. We're going to open up just enough to see if there's open brood, if there's eggs, make sure we have a queen, put it back together. Use a little smoke while doing that, unlike the video I just showed where I I was impatient. It was late in the evening and I just opened it up and I dropped the lid, so I had a few angry bees. But anyway, the less we can disturb the virgins, the better. And then, or young mated queens, you know, when they're young like that, they really run around the comb. They're really flighty. I've definitely learned that if I mark them when they're young like that, they get killed by the bees. So the best I can do is to just let them be until there's cat brood. And at that point, the queens are typically have been laying long enough that they're calm and things work out a whole lot better. So there's a kind of just the overall tips. There's some experimental stuff I want to talk about too as well, and I'll share that either in a different video or part of this one. I'm not sure which yet, but either way, you know, if you're buying in queens where you're paying money, you know, it's worth, you know, sticking with the simple methods that we know work. And if you have a lot of virgins on hand, then the experiments can happen, because, you know, and that's what I do. I just brought in a bunch of queens from a friend, and virgins I should say, and I'm doing that slow method. But you know, with my own, I'll do some experiments to try other ways, and those can work really well, but they also come with a lot of greater risks. All right, it's 95 degrees out here and hot. I'm on my second bit of clothes, and I'm gonna go inside and extract some honey. Thanks for watching. Take care.